we thank you. We come in with a meditation and, kind of like getting recentered. And for those of you who have been with me for a long time, yay! For those of you who have been with me for a long time and you know the drill, so to speak, that when we meet, we just start to notice where we're at with no judgment. So we might have had, especially if we have very young children, or even actually teenagers, right? We might have had a morning of some chaos, and we might have had a morning where things take us by surprise. And things take us by surprise often comes into the package of I lost my mind with my child. I woke up in a good mood and the children pushed my buttons and then suddenly this good mood turned and I was snapping. So I just want to say this is how we meet. We bring our morning with us. It dragged along with us. And even if we resolved and said goodbye to our children at their school door or at the bus or whatever, we're still carrying this residual effect of whatever happened in the morning. And so with acceptance and with complete openness, we allow ourselves to arrive. So we start to notice, how is it that I feel right now in my body? And how is it right now that my mind and my emotions are? How are they? Are they stirring? Notice your thoughts. Like, oh gosh, she brought up the morning, all that chaos of trying to get the kids out, and I did this, and that. Notice where your mind goes. When I say, let's just land right here, we don't land and find complete emptiness. There are thoughts appearing in our minds, usually based on our memories. What thoughts do you have? And just like a sky never judges stars, and just like an ocean doesn't judge waves, we do not judge our thoughts. This is what we learn. We don't judge our emotions. We notice them. We don't turn away from them, but we notice and we don't follow. We don't add to it. Like a sky holding stars. So allow yourselves to see the lights in your mind like stars, your thoughts, all appearing. And find your breath. Allow yourself to feel a big full breath come in, as if you're pulling all of your thoughts and emotions into the center of your being with full acceptance. It comes into your being like it's moved into this wide open space. And then we exhale. Let the exhale last a nice long time. And feel clarity and openness. And allow ourselves to take a nice full breath in. And then exhale. Hold the breath out. And we'll return into our space. And there's a wonderful way for us to gather and to do that. Imagine that you did that every morning. Imagine that as soon as you woke up and your wheels started to turn and you were thinking, I have to get the lunch ready and the breakfast and my clothes. I didn't even take a shower yet. Yeah, it's late. All these things. Instead, you just lie there in the bed and you notice all of the thoughts, and then you just calmly breathe in, breathe out. This morning, before I head here, I have some things that I do, in the morning, and getting myself ready to start to leave my house and come to school. I mean, sometimes I have a client early, and sometimes I have to just, get ready early, right? But this morning it was kind of an extra little push. My dog is getting very old, so often I go downstairs and there's been an accident, so I have to prepare myself and go down a little earlier than usual. And then my mind is in a different place, and I get kind of swept, and then I'm carrying this poor little guy out the door and then come back in and clean up, and it's giving you a picture of the whirlwind. And then I could take them both for a walk with Jack, get Jack up. Jack, we gotta go. I have school today, right? And then get going. And so there's a bit of a whirlwind, and I'm thinking of preparing and what I had prepared the night before. And I start to realize, wow, I'm in a bit of a whirlwind, and I want to keep going. I want to start reviewing all the things that I prepared so I'm ultra ready. And then instead, I sit down and meditate for an hour. And I watch my mind on a morning like this. I watch my mind get pulled to being like, you can't be doing this. You're supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z, and you have to get out the door, and there are school buses on the road now, and you have to be careful with that. No, right? So it's not like I can say to parents, oh, you're going to do a course, or you're going to, do meet with me once a week, once in a while, and you're going to be completely changed and enlightened, you know? No, but your awareness is going to change, and you're going to start to make really powerful choices. And the powerful choices are going to be toward wisdom instead of toward confusion. So that affects our children. And today, I wanted to just, so many of you have been in classes with me for a long time, and some of you have even done the trainings with me, Wisdom Heart trainings. So you're very aware of what I'm going to present. And yet, when I present something, I am aware of something. It comes in a new way, because your children are now, say, a year older or 2 years older, right? You are a year wiser or 2 years wiser, or in a new set of confusion. Because just as you think you have something down, something starts to go wrong again. That is raising children. There's no finish line. There's no, I made it, and well, there's a tiny bit of it now that my kids are 22 and 20. There's a tiny bit of it of feeling like, um, you know what, all the work was worth it, right? Thank you.
I couldn't get the coffee to work.
Thank you. So there's a lot of trust that gets built into the work that we do. And trust meaning it's not like you can see everything right away. And I had mentioned to a group last night, it was something like, I realize a lot of my work, I had mentioned Dear Two, who has been encouraging me to write a book for so long. And I said she doesn't give up. And I realize more and more, if I ever do land this book, essentially it's a book of like, keep going, because you'll create amazing relationships with your children, and they'll always feel they have someplace to go. So I'm going to pull us into the very beginning, since this is a little bit of an intro of what is it like to do work in Wisdom Heart? What is it like to do the program Leading with Wisdom and Heart? And it's a journey. And the journey begins with us talking about children from when they're very little. And I encourage everybody, every step of the way, to not only look at your own children, but even reflect on your lives when you were their age. Maybe some self-exploration. What was going on when you were born? When you were from the birth to 3 range and your parents had you, and what was going on in their lives, and what was happening for you as you were being raised in your family with siblings, without siblings, and so on and so on. So when we start, we look at the very young child from birth to 3, let's say, this very first phase. And the very first phase is, I'm giving little seeds here as I give a picture of Wisdom Heart. The very first phase is that phase where the brain is developing at the most rapid pace. And we emphasize in early childhood for the parents to start to become aware. And I say early childhood, it's really from birth to, I want to push it to 9, right? Like Kim Payne often does, because that 9-year change is really the significant leap into a new phase. Though that also does begin around age 7. So early childhood, you'll often see, written about birth to age 7. But what you hear often about parenting from birth to age 7 is the key is about the child imitating us. And are we worthy of the child's imitation? You'll hear this in early childhood each year when they light their candle at the beginning of the year. The teachers make that intention. May we be worthy of the child's imitation. Now, in some ways, a teacher, well, they have it harder in some ways because they have about probably around 16, 18, 20 children. So that's a tremendous amount of children. But in some ways, the teacher also is saying goodbye at a certain time, right? And parents don't have that. It's 24/7, right? When the child is with us, we're constantly in that space. So how could we be worthy of a child's imitation all the time? We can't. Sometimes we're just messing up. But we know that there's this situation that we're looking at, and we're seeing ourselves on a first outer layer. So in the parenting courses, even though I don't talk about it all the time, but in Wisdom Heart, we're constantly dealing with this outer layer, inner layer, and secret layer. The outer layer is this, what's going on the outside? Am I worthy of my child's imitation? So on an outer layer, it might look that way, meaning if a child does something that is not desirable or not acceptable, right? Like clobbers their sibling. On an outer layer, how are we responding to the child? Right? So sometimes it could look really good. It could look like, oh, we do not do that. If it's an older child, let's rewind and show me how to do that with kinder hands, or with a very, very little one. Oh my goodness, this is what we do with our hands, right? And we show them. So on an outer layer, it might look good. Sometimes it doesn't, though. Sometimes it's like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? You hurt him, right? And we react in a big way, right? So there are two things happening on that outer layer. One is obvious, right? That, oh, we need to correct our outer layer in order to give the child a great example of how to be. And they really take that in, right? And then there's this inner layer. We could have inner peace matching our outer, and we could very well give them direction and say to them, oh, we know what to do with our hands. Show me. And you just have this very relaxed way about you. Why do you have a relaxed way about you? Well, first, let me give you an example of not. So the outer layer, again, you might behave, let's use the example of very, very fine, but inside you're thinking to yourself, this child keeps doing this. This is a disaster. This is going to be terrible. They're going to have a hard life. I mean, this child is going to behave like this all the time. And you're like, dear, put your hands down, because you learned at Waldorf, put your hands down and you could, you could, do the right thing. I know you can. And you're thinking to yourself, we're in trouble. You know, the child is still picking up on that inner layer, right? We might be, though, we're getting there. We're getting there because we're not being that hot, reactive outer anymore. We're starting to tuck it in, but it hasn't fully integrated yet. So we start to see like, wow, I'm really changing, and a lot of people will come to me. I had a session yesterday with somebody who lives in Manhattan and it was a dad, he gave me some great examples, and he said, I'm doing this and I'm doing this, and it's still, and I said, how are you feeling inside? He's like, oh, I just want to strangle the kid. Oh, oh, so we found something here, right? That's the next step. You have a layer of yourself that is acting appropriately, but that child has like a siphon and they're pulling in what's going on in the subconscious into themselves. So that's another part that we look at always. Like I said today, I'm just like really drawing it out as the outer, inner, and we'll get to the secret layer. This is what we're constantly doing as we're raising children. We're seeing something on the outside. We're either seeing blatant, like, oops, I just screamed at my child, right? Ouch, straight up, nasty, nasty, right? We could see it, or we could really have that pulled in, but then we find the inner is still like, and then we start to work with that. And then we start to work to match both worlds. Sometimes, no matter how long you've been doing it, like I had mentioned, you will find that you'll have your times where you just pop on the outer or fall apart on the inner and just have all these images of your child and fears coming up. Sometimes that's what happens. But we use this like the stars held in the sky, right? Just like I said in the meditation today, constantly reminding ourselves that we are going to work to see things in this way with no judgment. And I guess what I'm really presenting today is about us. Because if we find ways and find keys to stop judging ourselves and to accept the fact that sometimes we react in a crummy way, sometimes our inner life has a lot of fear around what our child is going to be. When we start to notice it and not try to push it away or cut it out, and we start to open up like a sky holding stars, we start to get somewhere because our whole being starts to relax. And then we get to really look. And then we really get to explore and make changes. And that's the secret that occurs. That calm and that acceptance and that wisdom to actually look at ourselves and not let our ego take over and be like, I wasn't doing that. I wasn't mad. Yes, you were. The child knows, right? I wasn't angry. Your spouse is telling you, yeah, oh, gee, you really overreacted. No, I wasn't. That's the ego popping in. Suddenly we start to find ourselves saying, huh, I'll reflect on that. Doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, but we start to be more like the sky holding the stars. And with that, you become more relaxed. Your heart starts to calm down. You start to have less of a practice of self put downs and more of a practice of acceptance and knowing I'm doing pretty good. I'm good enough. This term in a parent world and psychology, good enough parenting, right? I'm certainly good enough. I'm striving. Steiner talks about that, how important it is to strive, to work toward the better, to work toward the wisdom. So in early childhood, we start hardcore with this because the little ones are sponges. And from birth to 3, they're just completely open. And this isn't to scare parents, it's to just relax, breathe, and see it as the reality that it is. We wouldn't sugarcoat it. We're just going to say it as it is. The children are sponges. And now we could also say cringe, cringe. Oh my goodness, our children are past 0 to 3. It's okay. We have a whole path and a lifetime of looking and watching. We have a whole path to bring this kind of calm, non-judgmental approach to the children. So the outer layer, we're looking at our children's behavior on a very relative level. My child clobbered somebody. Outer layer fact. Outer layer fact. I responded to the child to go correct them. Outer layer. Inner layer. I was either calm inside or really nervous or angry, right? We look at the inner layer. Our children's inner layer picks up on ours. If we're calm inside, they might not be, by the way, calm, right? On the outer layer, they might still be falling apart, but we're giving them the gift of knowing that they can find that inner calm. That's what they're picking up on. So these layers meet I just thought of like arches of a rainbow, from one being to the next. The secret layer is that it's already there. That wisdom is already there. And the reason that as parents we mess up so much because we're human, and I say mess up because sometimes it's just the way it is, right? But the reason we mess up so much is because that secret that's already there, the wisdom that we're working to bring forth, got covered up by our life, how we were raised, by society, by feeling judged, by wishing that we could keep up with others. All these layers through our years and through our parents and how they parented us. It's not a hate fest, but what it is a reality fest. So we uncover the secret. The secret is we already have the wisdom, but we need to work with the outer and the inner layers in order to get there. So this outer, inner, and secret is held throughout all of the teachings, and as I said, may not be mentioned explicitly all the time. But we're always doing this dance of saying, where is the child developmentally? What is happening on an outer layer, a scientific level, a biological level? What is happening? 2 feet on the ground. And then what is happening in here? What projections, what perceptions, what feelings are going on? So as the child grows, as I said, our challenges could fade away from early childhood and then start to arise into their next phases. But the more that we work on this foundation in ourselves, to be able to be open and to really look at ourselves without being defensive, the more strength we have to raise them when the bumps come. And I always bring in examples of, situations that I see in my children when in college or now graduated from college, and the resilience that they have because of the work that I did to not judge myself and to also be able to admit when I messed up. And it took work to be able to move into a place where you're going into what we call, the authoritative parent. You're not afraid to lead. And you can do it with warmth, but warmth doesn't mean pushover. It means that you're keeping your heart and maybe a twinkle in your eye as you're raising your children, but you're not a doormat. You keep your 2 feet on the ground and you lead with confidence. So that's a picture of outer inner secret and how we are holding our work in Wisdom Heart. And Leading with Wisdom and Heart is a program that I know that many of you have already taken. Thank you for being here. And like I said, I hope that even though you've heard these things and you know kind of the, let's say, formula that I hold implicitly and explicitly, I hope that it's a re-inspiration. Like I said, we arrive here as new beings all the time because things are changing all the time. Just look at our children or just look in the mirror and see how we change all the time, right? So along with our philosophy that we sit with for the first parts of Wisdom and Heart, we also have this beautiful time of we make puppets together each season, a seasonal puppet basket, so that we could tell the children, whether we use it for our own children or we decide that we want to lead parenting groups. You end up with a seasonal little story. For the first season, we usually make Squirrel Nutkin. If you've been here for a couple of years, we open up other ideas to make. And during that time, it's a beautiful conversational time where organic conversations pop up and we could dig in deeper to things like, hey, Stephanie, when you mentioned this morning, I was thinking about something that happened with my child. Like things like this occur at the table, and it's warm and social and connecting. And then at the very end, we do a little circle time. So we learn the seasonal songs, and at the end of the season, I hope that many, if that's the striving, have the confidence to then do a circle time with their children or go and hold classes and do them. So it's a full program after a year of school year of being together, that you have all of this parent development work, which we start off in the fall with child development focus. And we go through the ages and stages of child development. And slowly but surely it evolves more and more into turning in to us, but it's always held throughout that way. So does anybody have any questions? As I always say on my parenting classes, I've talked too much. Hope you're all still there, hanging in there. Anybody have questions or thoughts or anything to add? Have a nice group. Yeah, nice group of people. Huh?
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi. Hi, Raha. So nice.
Raho is here.
Oh,
How are you?
doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I just wanted to say how thankful I am for the time we spent together on the same course for a year and how much I learned and how much you inspired me and how much you helped me going through all the struggles I had. And as you mentioned, I look back and I have a lot to work on, but looking back, just seeing that glimpse of I have changed, it just, I don't know how to put it in word and thank you.
Oh, oh, thank
I,
you.
I would love to take this course again and again and again because I do strongly believe every time, depend on the changes I achieve, I can take something more always. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It's funny, Raha, we're aligned with, I was having a conversation this morning with somebody who works here at the school, and she has a little one, and she doesn't know a lot about what I do, and so she came up and we were having this great conversation. And I was saying to her, I really start getting this feeling at this point in my life and being here and seeing so many parents through the years raising their children that it becomes so apparent that people really do change. And I brought that up last night in one of the parenting classes, about just stop for a minute and think if you've been doing this work for a few years and think of yourself, am I saying, do we feel like we're perfect? No way. I am always finding bumps and bruises within myself, of like having to change and think about and reflect. So we're not going to land in perfect, but I can definitely say from my perspective, watching parents, they grow before my eyes and change. And wow, 5 years ago to now, right? We just see a more grounded, calm person before us, and how people are raising their children is just so very different from when they first walked in. And I see that in myself, the mother that I was at the very beginning to who I evolved into over time. And it's because of keeping our eye on this, and we don't take it as I love how Kim Payne would say about simplicity parenting when he introduced it as a course. He would always say, it's not a quick fix, it's life, you know? And it, and it's like if you speak to somebody, say about say a diet, right? And somebody goes on a diet for a short period of time, it's better to actually just make life changes, and to be steadily creating health, right? And I think that's what we're doing. We're not doing some crash diet here to be like, okay, let's jump in and create change, and I guarantee you you're going to be a better parent in 1 month, like that kind of thing. It's just like this slow process of trusting that the more we swim in this and the more we lean on one another, the more we're just simply going to change toward wisdom. Change is inevitable, but we could also change toward more confusion, right?
Absolutely. But I think that having the luxury or having not the right word is not coming to my mind, having the gift of having a mentor like you is amazing because I see myself going to that space, being really amazing, and then life will take me away. So it's a long time, lifetime work, and it's good to have the help
Thank
to bring you back, to bring you back. That's that's priceless, and I'm so grateful for that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Ah, wonderful. Thank you so much. Anybody else want to add anything? You could even bring an issue that you have. Anybody have a really crummy morning with their children?